10 weeks down and only 2 to go in the iRacing 2022 season. Well, we come to the end of the year, and for Season 4 of Friday Night Primetime, we have something special. For the first time this season, for the first time in Friday Night Primetime history, we have a tied vote between the GT3 Fanatec Challenge at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course and the SK Mod Fixed Series at the Texas Legend Speedway as well. It is a special, special night. The first time we go to 2 venues in one broadcast. I, for one, really am looking forward to it. We go to 2 very diverse disciplines of motor racing over the course of one night, and it should be very, very densely packed with a lot of action for sure. We saw a lot of action last time out at Road America with the Spec Racer Ford. Myself and Cameron Rogers took you through that stream, and well, it was one to remember. Has been the theme pretty much for this entire season. But anyway, my name is Zach Sweeney. I'll be joined in the commentary booth by Will Chadwick with Zach Johnson behind the scenes, providing you with the production feed. And well, Will, something very, very different today. It's not something we were particularly expecting, but 38 votes apiece for the 2 series, and well, it was very, very close indeed.
Yeah, it's incredible that you can, over the course of a week, you can get the votes being exactly the same. Even Formula 3.5 running it pretty close as well. So it's going to be really interesting. Of course, we start off with some GT3 action, which is always going to be fantastic, especially with some of the names that I'm sure we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, to go to do some oval racing, to watch some oval racing tonight will be really, really fun.
Yeah, well, it's one that I think we've only seen once so far this season. We went to the Indies, I think, at Talladega. It was the only experience of over racing that we've had so far this season. Though the Texas, the Texas Speedway, it's a little bit different. I was looking up a couple of YouTube videos about it, and it literally is, I think it's a quarter mile long. It's a small little dash to the first corner, then you have to brake left hand, then you go backwards down the pit lane, then left, and then you're going back up the short dash to the pit straight. It's 50 laps long, but should only last sort of about 12 laps 12 minutes, in length. It's very peculiar as a sort of a venue to go to, but hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing about oval racing. I mean, there's so many different varieties of ovals that is used across America for the NASCAR series, and many of its subsidiary disciplines that all funnel the way up into the main series. And it's going to be different across every track and every challenge. And oval racing is always one of those things that if you've never done it, you won't understand how hard it is. And I'm sure we'll figure that out tonight.
Oh yeah, I mean, even in sort of the smaller sense that we will have at Texas, it's still very, very difficult. As I always will say, I did come from sort of the complacent attitude of they're just turning left. They're not doing anything productive. Like, what are they doing? And then I tried it. I got iRacing myself. Just did some rookie races on some random oval in the stock car, and I was like, hang about. Yeah, no, this is pretty hard. I'll give them some sort of newfound respect for what they do, because it can be very, very tricky indeed, even just on sort of the open lobby, sort of the official races that we see here on iRacing. But that's besides the point. We come back to the oval racing and of course the SK modified at Texas just after this race with the GT3s and Indianapolis. We've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds left of qualifying so far, and we have Gianni Vecchio, the big name that you were talking about, taking pole position so far.
Well, yeah, on pole by just under 0.2 of a second. Very, very good lap from Gianni. And also Nicholas Rubila, not too far behind. I think we might see a fight maybe down into turn 1. Of course, this race isn't that long. Everyone's on fixed setups, which tends to close up the field, especially if you're looking from 3rd to 5th. There's only 0.02 of a second splitting 3 drivers. So it shows how close it really can be at the top here. But Gianni with a comfortable margin, and I'm sure he'll be looking to take that into the race.
Oh yeah, for sure. Vecchio is a very, very decorated driver in sim racing at the moment. 9.4k iRacing is, not too bad for the Team Redline driver at all. And taking to the Porsche, so far the entirety of our top 8 are all in that Porsche 911 GT3. And well, it seems to be the car of choice. I mean, with iRacing, of course, you are going to have some cars that do succeed quite well, but not surely to the extent of the entire top 8 locked out here at Indy.
Oh, well, you'll be surprised because the bot this season for the GT3 cars has heavily favoured the Porsche. It has been dominant across many classes, and it's got to the point where leagues are now putting kilograms on this car that has never been seen before. I know for something that's coming up in a few weeks, I'm sure many people are excited for across the sim racing world, the Sim Racing Expo. It's got 70 kilos added to it in comparison to something like the Lamborghini, which is on 0 just with a bit of power dropped. And in other series like the 24-hour series, it carries 45 as well. So a lot of weight is being put on this car throughout this season's BOP, and I'm not surprised that it's being chosen by the masses here.
It's a very, very good car of choice, particularly for sort of these sprint events as well. In my experience, it's been quite temperamental. It can be quite twitchy on the front end, but hey, if you can master it, if you can make it work and you can be consistent with it, then it definitely does seem to be the car of choice, as we have proven with the majority of our field doing quite well in the Porsche. We have drawn qualifying to an end. We will take a look through the grid in just a moment. But in terms of how close this field is, well, I'm really looking forward to this 20-minute shootout.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait. Who do you reckon's going to win?
Oh, mate, no, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I mean, the easy cop-out answer is just going to be Gianni Vecchio, and then because obviously with him being the highest I rating, him taking pole position, him being himself really, should in theory set him up quite well to win this race. But hey, it's iRacing official service. They're not always going to be as clear-cut as that. They are always going to throw a bit of a curveball in the mix. But hey-ho, we have a 20-minute race to decide that. We're going to take a look through the starting grid then. It is going to be Gianni Vecchio that takes pole position just ahead of Nicholas Rubliar, who will join him on the front row of the grid. Then comes Jesper Eriksson, then Kwiatkowski rounds off the second row in P4, then Piotrowski rounds off the top 5 with the number 3 Machina Soren just there in P6. Looking a little bit further down, we have Lauritsen P7, Klassen will join him on the 4th row of the grid with Tobias Gabler, and Mariani rounds off your top 10. Ben Brick P11 with Ayat there in P12 alongside for the 6th row. Then comes Ribby, Kirkham, Gasper, Berkner, your top 16. Just in behind them comes Pacode and Smoger to round off the 9th row of the grid there in P18, and that will round off the entirety of the grid. Only 18 cars, but still should be jam-packed in terms of action. A short formation lap, of course, before they get underway for a rolling start here at Indianapolis. That run down in towards turn 1, it is does open the door for a little bit of side-by-side action. You go into the right, then you go to the left. It could really, sort of spice things up if someone's quite eager on the outside.
I think it all depends on how Gianni Vecchio will run his start. So it depends if he's going to go and try and make a bit of a jump at the start, sit back from the safety car, get that little advantage down into turn 1, and it could be game over from then. But I expect with how Indianapolis is, the road course, I don't think he'll be able to get a sizable gap, but we'll see. And I can't wait for it, really. We've got a long pace lap.
We've got the full pace lap of the Indianapolis Speedway. It gives the drivers an ample opportunity to really get those tyres and brakes up to temperature. And of course, in iRacing, a sim as well prestiged as iRacing, how important is it? Just even in these sort of official servers, even in sort of sprint formats, how important is it to use this formation lap to your advantage?
I think it's, especially with the GT3 tyre model, it's important not to take much out of your tyres. It's very, very easy to get past these the peak of these tyre model that is being used in GT3 at the moment, and might be changing rather soon with the patch update for the new year. But at the moment, taking as little out of the tyres as possible, keeping the pressures as low as possible on these rolling laps is vitally critical, kind of, because if you just weave in the tyres, scrubbing your tyre a bit too hard, you are going to greatly impact at least your first couple of laps. It might cost you the gap, break the point, and you being a little bit behind.
Yeah, for sure. And because you're going to want to use the full extent of the tyres over the course of the 20-minute race that we have got. You don't want to have to sort of wait around on them and conserve them by any means. You want to be able to have confidence in them over the entirety of the race. They're not exactly racing for a championship or anything like that, more just so a bit of pride. It's still nice to go out there and give it your all, especially when you're on broadcast, especially when you're trying to try and impress and whatever, and give us a good race, as we have seen pretty much for this entire season. You've been alongside me for a couple of these races, and they've always delivered.
Yeah, I always love watching these races, especially the fixed setups. It does make it a little bit closer because GT3 is one of those classes that you are able to get a decent advantage from a very good setup, more so than something like IR04 or even Porsche Cup, because everyone kind of knows what the best setup is in that, roughly. And yeah, I think this is another circuit where it can provide some really good racing action, because there's not too much sequential corners where you're not going to get much of an advantage from toe, and no one should really drop out of toe, providing there is no large mistakes. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. It is going to be one to watch for sure. We have two very, very quick drivers on the front row. Gianni Vecchio alongside Nicolas Rubliar for that P1 and P2 front row lockout. Just in behind them, Ericsson and Kwiatkowski, 3 and 4. It is going to be very, very densely packed of action, as we say time and time again. These GTs always do deliver. They've got one more corner to go, then it will be Vecchio that controls the pace all the way to the timing line to signal us underway for week 11 here, Friday night prime time. He's gone very, very early. I think Rubliar has actually been caught quite off guard by Jesper Ericsson as they run their way down the pit straight for the first time. Vecchio trying to come back to the left-hand side by side between the two Porsches. The number 8 machine of Ericsson trying to get to the right-hand side. It'll give him the inside for turn 1. Vecchio with a dominant lead so far, making it 3 wide. Maybe Kwiatkowski having a bit of a look. Then to the outside goes Rubliar, back up the inside of turn 2. A brilliant move there from the number 2 machine to try and consolidate second place, though what he's allowed Gianni Vecchio to do is open up that gap to a couple of car lengths, now to the extent of sort of 0.5 of a second. But as they come through the fast chicane and down the pit straight, that slipstream is going to be vital to keep Rubliar in this race.
Yeah, it was one of those things that really could have gone wrong for Rubliar, because if he just fought a little bit harder than he did with Ericsson, it really could have opened that gap up for Gianni, and it would have been a rather simple race for himself. But we kept them in tow. As I said, there wasn't many corners before we got to a straight and a chance to catch back up. And we see the front 3, front 4 all firmly together within tow,
which is obviously what we want to see. They are 1, 2, 3 and 4 as they started this race. We've also got the number 3 machine of Kolodzi there in P5. Then comes Klassen, Petrovsky, Lauritsen, Gabia and Ben Brick, your top 10. Everyone just trying to settle into a rhythm in this race. They are running a sort of about, I think to the extent of about 1 minute 40 lap times, give or take. We'll have to see what the lap times are as they run their way through the first proper lap. They are going to round off lap 1 now as they run through the final corner, through this right-hander, side by side between Gasper and Mariani for 12th place as they round off the first lap, tick 1 off, and that is always a good milestone because you've started the race, you've got into that mentality, and now it's time to press forward.
Yeah, so it's looking to me like there's a breakaway here, at least between the top 4 drivers, especially when you see that gap that's forming with the pace that I know that Vecchio and Rubliar are going to be able to maintain. I don't see the 5th place car of Kolovchek catching back up, sorry for butchering the name, but yeah, I don't see that happening from now onwards.
Well, only time will tell. That is a little bit wide from the Lamborghini. I think that is Record going very, very wide to get past the Porsche of Kirkham. They're going to run down this little straight towards the next braking zone for the left-right, and you can see there the Lamborghini taking the inside line. Going to try and hold firm, though the Porsche trying to keep them firm on the outside. Here into the barrier is Petrovsky. That was the man we saw, I think, in around about 6th or 7th place. He's now tumbling down the timing order down to now P18, last place overall. And for Ruben Petrovsky, that is not good at all, because yeah, it's going to be so difficult with the damage that he's obviously sustained from going into the barrier. It's going to be near on impossible for him to recover in this race.
Well, those tyre barriers don't tend to be as punishing as a hard concrete wall is, and you might get away with it a little bit. But yeah, the time lost is crucial in a 20-minute race, and with already 3 minutes gone, he's going to have a chance to come back a little bit, but not for the top 5 places.
Yeah, it is going to be, it's going to take a miracle. And, well, when it comes to Friday night prime time, miracles don't often happen. It's a very, very harsh, well, it's not necessarily a series. It just does not seem to favour fortune for drivers. This is exactly what happened to Piotrowski, and just tagged round from the fellow Porsche behind him, and that is unfortunate. It didn't look to be much contact, but obviously iRacing deemed there to be, and unfortunately it was the smallest of, not the smallest of taps, but it wasn't it wasn't like he completely shunted into the side of him, and unfortunately it just did send him careering into the barrier. This is the number 14 BMW of Berkner, unfortunately just escaping his way back into the pit lane. But we turn our attention back to the front. It is still Gianni Vecchio that leads the way ahead of Rubliar, and then comes Ericsson Kwiatkowski still in tow, just 2 seconds covering the top 4, and they are still there. Rubliar, though, I think is eyeing up the move for the race lead fairly soon. They are coming through the final chicane, and then of course they rejoin down the pit straight. And for Rubliar, this could be, if he can just keep the pressure on the Team Redline driver, stay in tow, he could very easily eye up and moving towards turn 1.
Yeah, it looks close, doesn't it? I mean, it's 3/10. It's going to have a chance down his back straight. Not quite sure if the closing speed's going to be enough, but definitely able to stick with Vecchio here. And I think not quite a chance this time round, but maybe biding the time for Rubliar, because I would expect the closing speed to be a little bit more. Yeah, slowly breaking away. from third and fourth place is this top two, and that could continue with the gap being around about a second now, getting towards that time where we're starting to break toe. It looks like we're going to have a breakaway here.
Yeah, I think for Vecchio and Rubio, they know what they need to do. If they want to sort of just have their lives to be very, very easy, what they're going to do is just work together and escape away from Jesper Eriksson and Kuba Kwiatkowski just in behind. But we'll come back to that fight a little bit later on. We got a good one right here between Lauritsen, Kolodjek and Gabler. Well, as one of them disappears, then reappears back in. That's the very vibrantly coloured Porsche. And you can see the number 3 machine there of Kolodjek just following in, so trying to get himself up inside the top 6. At the moment, P7, he's got Gabler for company just in behind. And when you're in a 3-car train like this, well, it's so difficult when you're in second place having to look forwards and backwards.
Yeah, and it's also difficult to make your moves. I mean, sometimes having a difference in car, especially for Gabler in the BMW, will be helpful for some things. But the one thing the Porsche is extremely good at is traction zones, and that makes it incredibly hard to get an advantage out the corner and actually make the move. And that is something, especially at low-speed corners, which has really impacted a lot for the difference between the Porsche and the BMW. As this race goes on, I think we'll see the Porsche kind of come a bit more into its own, because it tends to develop and work the tyres a little bit less, meaning that you just kind of keep the advantage just for a little bit longer. It's not going to be much in this 20-minute race, but it's certainly going to be significant to the degree where we might see the BMWs and the Lambos drop off a little bit towards the end.
Only time will tell. It's one of those uncertain things that we can only predict, but again, we have to wait for the race to progress, and different drivers, of course, are going to drive the cars slightly differently and wear them down at different rates. But as you say, the difference in chassis will play a vital role, even as we say, only in 20-minute long races like this. It's not quite 4-hour endurance races or anything like that. A little bit wide from Gianni Vecchio, trying to take sort of the widest line he possibly can into this final corner, but Rubliar is putting a ton of pressure into him. And then into the final chicane through the right and closing down quite a bit of a gap. He's quite committed on the brakes. It is Nicolas Rubliar. Then through the left, and then one more right before they head down the pit straight. And that number 2 pink Porsche is all over the rear end of the number 1 machine of Vecchio, who might be feeling the pressure to the right-hand side slightly. Going to bring it back to the left. I'm not sure if he's going to be too comfortable leaving that inside open. If Rubliar wants to go for the send in towards turn 1, we could see it with just over 12.5 minutes left to go. Here comes the number 2 Rubliar, then going to send one to the inside, though Vecchio late on the brakes, going to swoop his Porsche the long way round the corner, back up the inside for turn 2, able to hang on for now. But Rubliar now doing the crucial thing of trying to put some pressure on, but already we're starting to see Eriksson reclose that gap back up.
Yeah, that was fantastic on the brakes from the number 1 car of Gianni Vecchio. And yeah, it was. I thought we were going to have a move there. I thought we'd see Rubliar go long on the brakes, but Vecchio very, very good on the brake zone. It's helped him keep the position. They don't want to fight too much because they've still only got a 1.6 second, 1.5 second gap. So, if they fight a little bit too much, you could bring Eriksson back into play. But I think, especially considering the pace difference here of about 2 to 3 tenths of a second a lap, it might not be the most concern that they have.
Yeah, I mean, for Vecchio, he obviously is just trying to keep onto this race lead, and as we've seen there, he was very committed on the brakes and does want to try and keep it to the best of his ability. But I think Rubliar was expecting for a bit of an easier affair, and these two starting to fight, even for their small little squabble that they had, did allow Eriksson to close the gap back up. So he's going to be hoping that these two fight more and more. We are just under halfway done into this race. We tick off lap number 5 and head on to 6. And well, between our top 2, we only have 2.5 tenths of a second. Rubliar is closing down this pit straight. Is he again going to try and commit on the brakes? The answer to that is no. And now on to lap 7. I do apologise. We are estimated around about 15 laps in this race. So we are, again, as I say, ticking off to nearly halfway through. But for Vecchio, I think that the main thing for him is not necessarily to be quick, just more quick where he needs to be. So obviously the corner exits and the corner entries are the most important things for him.
Yeah, well, it's very easy to be good on corner exit in the Porsche. Usually not much traction control at all because of the engine configuration. Of course, the engine being slung right over those rear wheels, and it's unique for the category. Even mainly most cars are either mid-engine, mid-front engine, or even front engine in this class. But the Porsche, obviously, like it does in real life, having the rear engine configuration helps a lot. And I think we had a slowdown for Rubliar, even though we're not on it at the minute.
well, he's dropping back to about a second and a half, and that is definitely telling of a slowdown penalty, which is unfortunate for him. This is side by side between Ericsson and Kwiatkowski. They've also got Klassen for company. You can see Klassen is trying to go to the outside now of the number 4 machine. That's not quite going to work in his favour, so Kwiatkowski hangs on, and so too does Ericsson because of the squabbling from behind. A long train here, I think extending all the way back to maybe Gabler there in P8, 7.7 seconds back off the race leader, so only about 1.6 off of Ericsson, or only a couple of seconds off Ericsson. Now we head tick down to 10 minutes, so halfway through this race, and we've got a long train here for the final podium place.
Yeah, this is how close it really can get, you know, and for the final podium place, I think, you know, obviously we see Ericsson with that little bit of an advantage, but it's important for these guys not to slow each other up, because it could be very easy for them to squabble amongst themselves for fourth, all trying to get in that prime position to get the podium, and then that means that they're going to end up dropping further and further back from Ericsson and potentially giving him a break. I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen here over the next 9 minutes, but I think these guys are going to be sensible and not fight it too much.
Yeah, and to the right-hand side of the normal sort of the delta gaps between the drivers, that is relative to the leader. The one on the right-hand side is relative to each other, and you can definitely see how close the gaps are. Only a couple of tenths of a second between a number of drivers. This is side-by-side between, I believe, Aerts and Gasper, trying to get the under and over, does the number 11. He's going to try and do that to the inside now through this next right-hander, side-by-side between the two of them. This might as well be the Porsche Cup. I don't know why we've named it GTs. There's only a limited amount of other cars. 3 wide as they run in. There's that Brick sending one to the inside, over the curb, jumps over, so Gasper able to go the long way around. Now comes another Porsche. So hard to keep up with who's who, but they run through the penultimate corner, the left-hander, before they run through the long right-hander to bring them on to the pit straight. Gasper leads them in P9, followed by Brick, Aerts and Ribby, and then I think Petrovsky just in behind them, and obviously Mariani rounding off this little train of cars, and they are going to run nearly 3 wide going down in towards turn 1. You've got to see the normal liveried Porsche all the way to the right-hand side. That is trying to be Aerts, sending one to the inside of turn 1. Bit of contact sends through Aerts, unfortunately drifted out on the outside line, and well, I think that was just bound to happen.
Yeah, but it was a fantastic bit of racing while it lasted. You know, obviously some things, sometimes it's just going to happen, just a bit of contact is inevitable. But yeah, really good racing. And you don't quite expect that from GT3s, because obviously they've got a little bit more downforce, a little bit more dirty air, but it was quite fantastic to watch.
Yeah, it certainly was. It's given us some good action for sure. It's something that we're quite lacking towards the front between Gianni Vecchio and Nicolas Rubler, which is unfortunate because I think Rubler just made a bit of a mistake or had a slowdown. The gap is sort of stagnating around about 1 second, so hopefully Vecchio, which touch wood, because obviously his caliber of driving at this at this stage in the race is not going to see him really have a high likelihood of making a mistake. But hey ho, we can hope. We can see if Rubler is going to close the gap. I mean, on that last lap, Vecchio at 23.6, Rubler at 23.3, so 0.3 of a second closed on that previous lap. But does it get to a point where the pace differential between Rubler and Vecchio sort of gets to a stalemate? Does it get to a point where Rubler becomes too close to really gain as much as he is?
I think when you start to get to 2 tenths back, the dirty air really does pick up. But it is interesting. I was going to report on it to say that despite Rubler's slowdown, which came at turn 10, you know, just before you start to enter the banking, before the little twisty bit when you re-enter the banking again, yeah, that just happened, just on the inside, cut a little bit too much. Probably, I think maybe a 1.5 second slowdown. But over these last few laps, really had a good 1 to 3 tenth pace advantage, and it's got him back with inside the range of toe at the moment. And maybe 6 minutes to go, if he can really continue to hit these laps perfectly like he is at the moment, he might have a chance within the last few laps.
Maybe so, and well, you know, we're going to hold out hope for it. Fingers crossed we do get the fight for the race lead that we are hoping for. A little bit wide from Rubler, so definitely showing how hard he is pushing. That's going to open the gap back up between them to around about 1.2, 1.3 seconds. So an unfortunate mistake for the number 2 machine of Rubler. We cut back to the fight between Petrovsky and Brick as they run in towards the final chicane. You can see there Brick, having to tuck in behind the number 6 machine, and as they head through the penultimate corner, they are still fighting 3 cars for the top 9. We're seeing some really good battles. You know, we've got the narrative between Vecchio and Rubler. We've also got this sort of midfield fight sort of developing, and while it is fairly Porsche dominated, it's not bad racing at all. Really enjoying this.
Well, yeah, I think GT3 always has a good amount of racing to offer, and especially here at IMS Road, I think it's been really good. I think, like I said earlier, you know, with the difference of not having too many corners sequenced together before you get a chance to gain back in the toe, it means that no one can really break a sizable advantage over someone that's a similar sort of pace. So it ends up creating more battles, and yeah, we've definitely seen that across the past 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we still have 5 to go, and fingers crossed the fight for the race lead that we are hoping for, unless Rubia can sort of get it under 1 second and get into the toe, and then start to sort of exponentially gain, and maybe a mistake from Gianni Vecchio thing. You know, we can hope, we can hold out hope. I mean, it's nearly Christmas, you know, less than a month to go. Or actually a month today, actually. I didn't even realise that. Oh, it's gone quick, hasn't it? So too as this 2022 iRacing season as well. So too is this season of Friday Night Primetime. It's just, you know, we go into the final week next time out, but hey ho, that is something to look forward to, or not look forward to, I guess, for week 12, the final week of season 4. But anyway, we've got week 11 to focus on. We've got Petrovsky and Brick still fighting out, or between Gasper actually for the P9. You can see the number 6 machine of Petrovsky down the inside of the penultimate corner. Then they'll go through the right, rejoin the banking, and then down the pit straight. Petrovsky gets up in a P9, though has that tarnished momentum allowed Gasper to maybe launch a counter attack.
Yeah, well, we see massive amounts of breaking of the toe here from Petrovsky. Of course, has a little bit of rear wing damage, costing him in a straight line, making it easier for Gasper to go down the inside. Overshoots it a little bit on the brakes. Petrovsky's wise to it, gets the cut back round the outside, seems to hold the position.
He does indeed. Not bad at all, and a good bit of racecraft shown. But back up the inside comes Gasper. That was sort of a half-hearted attempt. Then they'll go through the far chicane left, then the right. You've really got to maximise the curbs as best you can. Then down this back straight, the next heavy braking zone. Can Gasper use the slipstream? We can see how powerful the toe is, especially here at IMS. Is he going to look to the left-hand side? How late can he be on the brakes? Lick it, stick it, send it. And he sent that first class to the inside. Petrovsky's seen it coming to the outside. Gives him the inside for the next right-hander. So Gasper forced to sit back in situ and then in towards the next right hander. Not really much you can do here because it does flow quite well and very single file orientated, but Gasper, you can see, really eager to launch that counter attack.
Yeah, and he's still on the attack here, still looking to the inside. I think that's Petrovsky going late on the brakes. Didn't quite expect him not to go to the move. Now Gasper to the outside, doesn't quite able to make it stick there, gets the better exit. He's going to have a chance now down the main straight as we go on to lap number 13.
Only 3 to go then, with 2 minutes 53 seconds, I should say. I don't even know where I got 44 on. 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in this race, and we see Gasper fighting with Petrovsky for 9th place. Pulling to the right hand side, he's brave on the brakes, and he's got much more advantage now as they head in towards the chicane at turn 1. The number 11 machine down the inside, brilliantly done, able to consolidate that. Here comes Brick as well, trying to eye up the move for P10. Ribby is also getting involved with this. I think it's actually a 4-way fight between the Porsches. Yes, indeed it is. Oh my word. Petrovsky practically pushing Gasper through as they run their way now in towards the far chicane, then down the back straight. And well, this battle, it just continues and continues.
Well, it looks like we were getting a bit of a push to pass there. It's sort of reminiscing what we might be seeing later on in our SK Modifieds. It's going to be a really interesting fight. They're really fighting hard for this P9 here. Of course, Ruben Petrovsky got quite a bit higher I rating, but with that damage, he's struggling, especially on the straights. We've got, who is that? That's Berg to the outside, straight around the outside there, and he might even have a chance to go for the other position. He's holding it quite wide, though, giving a lot of room to Petrovsky, who goes for the inside of Gaspar. This is a fantastic battle, Zach.
It really is. They are not given an inch at all as they run through. Gasper still leads from Petrovsky and then Brick in this fight for P9. Also looking a little bit higher up the time tower. Vecchio and Rubio are separated still by about 1.2 seconds going on to the penultimate lap of this race. So maybe not, but you can see there Gasper already all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit, nearly into the pit wall to try and defend. Petrovsky pulls out late to the left-hand side. We can see 2 wide, 2 rows deep, just in behind between Berg and Ribby. You can see there Berg trying to nip his way up the inside of Petrovsky. That is going to leave him susceptible to the attack from Ribby, who's now going to run side by side with him. Gasper still P9 somehow. With how hard these guys are fighting, I'm amazed at how clean they're keeping it.
Well, they've got nothing else to fight for because P8 is 15 seconds up the road. So it's all or nothing. It's practically fighting for the win of the best of the rest here in P9. But yeah, everyone's side by side everywhere. And we're seeing another attack from Petrovsky to the outside. and he has to make his move in the infield section. The damage that he's got to his wing just basically means that he's much more limited going on to the main straights, and it makes it a lot harder for him to make a pass that we did see from Gasper. I think he does have the pace, but it's going to be hard, especially with that damage that he's got.
Yeah, of course, if you are only now just joining us a little bit earlier on in the race, Petrovsky was fighting up there, sort of in that fight for 5th, but unfortunately did suffer a bit of contact and send him careering into the barrier at quite some speed, so he is nursing a little bit of damage, but still doing well to sort of soldier on and fight quite well. Now, on to the final lap of this race, lap 15 of 15. Vecchio Rublia separated by 0.7 of a second. Is there any hope for this pink number 2 machine?
No. I'll answer that one right there. These drivers at this level don't make those sorts of mistakes. There's not that much pressure on the line. It's just a little bit of eye rating. But I'm sure they've had a really good race, and it's a bit of a shame really that Rublar made that mistake, and also made that subsequential mistake that we did see when we cut back to them and got the grass, because if it wasn't for that, Rublar might have had another few attacks at Vecchio, and we may have seen a little bit more of a fight for this lead, but there's nothing that you can't take away from the two of these drivers. 7 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, and they really have been class today.
They really have. His Lauritsen taking a spin. We'll have to cut back to Gianni Vecchio, though, because he runs his way through the penultimate corner for the final time. Rublia, too little, too late. Unfortunately for him, that slowdown really put an end to his fight for the race victory. Vecchio, though, is going to convert pole to flag here at Indianapolis. Comes across the line to take victory here for the Fanatec GT3 Fixed Series. 20 minutes he dominated for, and he takes the flag to take victory just ahead of Nicholas Rublia. And then the fight for third. Ericsson comes home P3, Kwiatkowski P4. Klaassen's very much close to the rear end there in a P5. Then comes Kwiatkowski a couple of seconds later for P6. Gabler will then come home P7. Lauritsen P8. But this is the fight that we're interested in between Gasper and Petrovsky. They've sort of left the others in the dust. It is going to be Gasper in this interesting little midfield fight that we saw, who takes sort of quote-unquote victory ahead of them. But unfortunately, in the timing tower, it is only P9. What a sort of first, I guess, just over half of this broadcast that we've seen. Of course, don't go anywhere. We'll take a 15-minute break and then go to the Texas Oval for some SK Modifieds. But a good way to open the broadcast. And we'll see now a bit of a replay with what happened with Lauritsen on that final lap. We just caught the end of it and tagged round, unfortunately, by Klodzik, I think it was, who sent it into the rear end and, of course, sent that Porsche spinning. We couldn't quite see the full aftermath of it, but this is also what happened to the number 10 machine. This is unfortunate for Mariani in that Lamborghini, and probably explains why that fight for P9 did end quite anticlimactic. It must be said. It was only a two-way fight between Denis Gasper and Ruben Petrovsky. But yeah, before we go to the results, Will, that was a decent race.
Yeah, that was a good race. I think we saw some really good battling across the field, and it definitely sets us up to go into our second race of the evening. And yeah, I really enjoyed that one because we got some real good competition, and we saw the difference between excellent drivers and also very, very good drivers, and we saw a good balance of competition between everyone.
Definitely. So indeed, this is how they rack up then after 15 laps of racing here in Indianapolis. Gianni Vecchio converts pole to flag and takes P1 just ahead of Nicholas Rubler, who gave him the best fight that he could have, but only P2 for him. Jesper Eriksson rounds off the podium with Kwiatkowski and Klaassen's your top 5. Then comes the number 3 machine of Klodzik in P6, Tobias Gabler P7, Lauritsen just in behind P8. Then we've got Gasper and Petrovsky, your top 10. The fast lap of 1:22.9 by no other than Gianni Vecchio on lap 2 of the race. So really setting the pace early. Then comes Ziad Ben Brick P11, Pascal Ruby P12, Jeff A. Hertz P13, Picard and Smoger, your top 50. Mariani just in behind with Berkner and Kirknam, unfortunately not been able to take it to the checkered flag and DNFing from this race. And Will, just before we throw to the break then, I mean, what are you thinking for the SKs? Are you looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it. I have absolutely no idea what to expect, but I'm sure we're going to have a good time, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it though, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, do not go anywhere, those in the live chat. We will step away just for a moment while we get ourselves switched over to the SK modified at the Texas Motor Speedway Legends Oval, and it is definitely one to look forward to. Talking you through the first half of this broadcast and continuing into the second half, it was myself, Zach Swin, and Will Chadwick with Zach Johnson behind the scenes in the production feed. We'll see you in a few minutes, and yeah, definitely go get yourself a drink and warm up for some great action in Texas in just a few moments' time. Hello and welcome back then to Season 4, Week 11 of Friday Night Primetime here on RaceSpotTV. We have just concluded the GT3 Fanatec Challenge Series at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, and we are here now for the SK Modified Fixed Series at the Texas Motor Speedway Legends Oval. It is myself continuing with Zach Sweeney, continuing with Will Chadwick and Zach Johnson behind the scenes on the production. And well, Will, we had a bit of a break, we've cooled down a little bit, and now we're back here in Texas for what should be some very interesting racing. It's an unorthodox sort of circuit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, ovals are always going to be interesting because you've got none of the massive spoilers, wings, front wings, underbody downforce, whatever you want to have. As obviously they produce a little bit of downforce, but there's not as much disturbance in these cars. It's very, very short oval, like you say, and there's going to be a lot more chances to pass, shuffle your way through the pack, and we could potentially see the people that qualify a little bit further down and just protect the tyres a little bit better get through the field more than you would see in a GT3 race, for example.
Maybe so. We have already concluded qualifying. It is Daniel Sweat that leads Bo Brady, the front row of the grid. Then comes Tyler Hudson and Tim Tripler. Mark Stewart and Charles Sills round off the third row in 5 and 6. Just in behind comes Jeremy Daring. Cartwright P8 just alongside with Howell and Palmer, your top 10. Leonard Jr. and Jason Murray P11 and 12. And then just after that, we've got, well, actually, we don't have, we've got Dustin Newcomb and Brady Romano rounds off the 7th row of the grid and the grid in general. And, well, we're underway for the pace lap already. Quick predictions, Will.
Tyler Hudson, because he always does. If people don't know, he is one of the main like stewards for iRacing competitions. So I hope he wins.
Well, then we will wait and see. I'm not sure if it is just one formation lap or two. I'm getting the impression that it is going to be a couple of goes around the circuit before they actually do get underway. And we will see ourselves underway for, I think, 50 laps here at the Texas Motor Speedway. As we say, it's a very, very short circuit indeed. Yeah, it will be very short and sharp. Should be only about 12 minutes in length, but you're on sort of the... you know, you're on the brake pedal actually for turn 1 and of course for turn 2. Then you dash back down the pit lane here, which is certainly interesting. You can see that the safety car peeling off to the left hand side, and it'll be Daniel Sweat and Bo Brady that round off the front row of the grid. Daniel Sweat will have the inside in the number 2 machine, and then he goes very, very early. We're underway here in Texas. A brilliant launch there, and already down to the inside. I think that's Tyler Hudson trying to go up the inside of Bo Brady, trying to get up in front, and now already Daniel Sweat leads, I think, ahead of Hudson, Brady, Tripler, Stewart, your top 5, Silverstone. And we've got a spinner of Howell, and already he's a lap down.
Oh no, that's a massive, that's a terrible rejoin, to be completely honest. And I have no idea how Sweat has managed to keep out the way of that in the lead. That's carnage, and it's not what you want to see at the start of this race. But Tyler Hudson, maybe he can't steward that one, but he'll be, and there's another crash, there's a bit of carnage down into turn 1. We've got the 14 off, the 12 off. I think someone else went into the deeper bits of the pit lane. This has been carnage so far. There's someone on the roof.
Oh, brilliant. This is a very interesting way to get this underway. We're going to see loads of cars everywhere. We don't actually know who's where, who's lapped and who's not. There's Sweat and Hudson running their way through. They've been able to stay close on each other's tail, but already a ton of carnage. And it's a simple circuit. I mean, yes, it's over racing, but surely they're able to keep it cleaner than this. Hudson's still trying to keep Sweat, you know, honest and put some pressure on. But Tripler 1.9 seconds back, 2.1 seconds back now off the leader of Daniel Sweat. And what we're getting now, I think, is the lap traffic really playing a factor. And when it gets to sort of a point like this, you've got so much carnage and chaos going on around you that there's just how do you run with this? How do you focus when all this is going on?
Well, you're never looking at the cars around you, or you'll end up in them. You're always looking at your next apex, your next braking point, and just continuing to look further ahead at all points in time. So you're hoping not to get distracted. Sometimes you have to take avoiding action, which we've seen there a little bit. People banging the wall. Obviously, it's a very, very interesting dynamic of like re-entering a pit lane in a way here at this circuit. And like you say, very, very small. As we see, multiple people have got caught out by that grass. You know, often on these oval circuits, you know, you don't see grass so close to the track, and I think especially for some of these guys, it's catching them out a little bit on the entries and exits into turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, looks simple on paper, might drive quite simple, but when you're racing, it can be quite difficult because, as you say, that grass does come at you quite quickly, and in iRacing, particularly in cars like these, that grass is going to punish you. You are going to be sort of a passenger, and you won't have any grip whatsoever. Right on board, really, now with Tyler D. Hudson as they're running towards turn 1. He's doing his best to keep Daniel Sweat, just in front of him, not let him get too far ahead. And obviously, with the lap traffic, this could open the door for Hudson to sort of try and find a way through, particularly with moments like this where Sweat is going to be ruined his momentum. The flipping car in front of him really catching Hudson out. That could have been a prime opportunity, but unfortunately traffic gives and traffic takes.
Yeah, that was very, very chaotic there, just with the little bit of traffic that we were having for this lead battle. Still got over 35 laps of this race to go, so there's plenty of opportunities for Hudson to make his move on Sweat, but they just need to be really careful, not make any stupid moves, not catch themselves out the race. Of course, if you've never watched these cars before, something to know about them: they're 370 horsepower with only a 2-speed transmission, and get this, still carburetor injected. Not even the carburetors.
That's not passing the emission test at all, with 370 on brake, whatever you said. And yeah, well, that is there's a lot of emissions coming off the Texas Motor Speedway today then, and yeah, they're using the full force of that 375 brake. They're not even able to actually use it, I guess, but the 2-speed transmission really does suit a circuit like this, because by the time you're actually up to speed, you're already on the brakes again anyway.
Yeah, it's stop and start, and it was really, I probably imagine they're not on the best brakes in the world. NASCAR's never have been, and I probably imagine it's still drum brakes for these cars, but I don't quite have the stat on that at the moment. But yeah, it's one of those things. It takes a lot of skill, and especially not spinning the wheels up out of these corners, especially with that much power. And as you can see, managing traffic as well.
Almost looks like we're looking at an endurance race or something like this, not a 50-lap over race, because of the way they're having to work their way through. A lot of crashes. We already lost Spencer Howell, David Leonard Jr. and Bo Brady from this race. They're 12th, 13th and 14th, down to just 11 runners. For a lot of these cars, they're overtaking cars. They're not actually fighting for a position. There goes the 13 spinning around. That is Brady Romano having a bit of a spin. This is the 2 leaders trying to work their way past Silvis. Sweat still leads from Hudson. They're broken way clear of Tripler. And, well, this is definitely a 2-horse race.
Yeah, at the minute it definitely is, but you're seeing the specialists kind of get really into this car and perform well. Of course, this car was released with the initial update of iRacing when it released back in 2008, so it has been on the service for a total of 14 years now. The 4th of February 2008 was when this car was introduced, alongside the Mazda Mark III Cup car.
Do you know what, Will? Do you want to know something? I wasn't even 2.
You weren't even 2?
I was.
Oh my word. You were 2 years old when this, what you're commentating on now, was released onto the iRacing service.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then it will.
Yeah, it makes me feel old, definitely. At least I was 6.
Oh, mate, you were old enough to remember it, I suppose. But yeah, no, Sweat still leading from Hudson. And this car definitely bringing up back some nostalgia for Will Chadwick, whether he had any idea about what racing was back then. But yeah, no, we are now already halfway through this race. Let's pick off lap 24 onto 25 now of 50. Yeah, 50 laps does seem like a lot, but when they're running, 13.8 second lap times, those lap counts that does increase quite quickly.
Yeah, it does make it quite challenging for these drivers, because obviously there's no power steering aid in these cars. If you are running a higher force feedback, turning left constantly and keeping on pushing against force feedback, you're having a corner every 7 seconds or so, maybe even a little bit less than that, is quite demanding for the driver, and you don't really get a time to rest. And I certainly know from when I've done some oval racing in the past, you actually get tired quicker than you may do at a road course, because you're constantly straining the same muscle and also doing it like within a really short period of time.
Yeah, in my experience of road racing, of course, I've only got a Thrustmaster.
Oh,
no! Oh, that is throwing away any hope of a good race for the lead that we thought we could have had. That was Cartwright just having a bit of a spin in front. And once again, the traffic has plagued our race leaders. Sweat still leads, and Hudson to the margin of now about a second behind. That's going to be such a difficult margin for him to close around a 14-second lap. You don't have the opportunity to send it a little bit more. He's going to have to hope that the traffic really works well to him, which, I mean, he deserves some luck after that.
To be honest, his car looks pretty fine. Surprising, really. But yeah, I'm not. It's not really the end of things. I mean, there's 8 tenths, obviously, still a sizable margin. As we look at a replay here, I think the car, I'm not sure what it was, the number 10 just got in the outside wall, went in a little bit too deep, maybe got a bit scared of the leaders behind him, clattered the wall, and there's just nowhere to go. I think Hudson, though, might have got away with a little bit of net code, just going through the back, not really making much contact, maybe just slightly going over the top of his car. And that's helped him a little bit, as we see him really battle past a back marker there, which has lost him a further another 2 tenths. So he really needs the look of the draw here in the remaining 18 laps.
Yeah, he really does. This is, again, Brady Romano happening off. I think he's going to escape to the pit lane, or actually, no, he's going to try and rejoin safely. You can see those brake discs glowing, whether they're drums or not. Here's Sweat and Hudson. 1 second separate the two of them. Yeah, Hudson is doing everything in his power to try and reclose the gap, but they have been matched on pace. 14.022 for Sweat on that last lap, 14.015 for Hudson. Again, as we say, there's not much you can do just to drive better. It is just going to be a case of getting the luck of the draw, hoping that Sweat suffers the same misfortune that Hudson did to be able to reignite this fight, because with 16 to go, that's only a couple of minutes left in this race, and for Sweat, he's going to be, just trying to cruise around and make his life as easy as possible.
Yeah, well, with coming into this final few moments of the race, how much of the tyre you've used could start to really affect you. Of course, we are seeing quite a large amount of traffic, and one car can cost you a second at times. I'm sure we've seen that across the course of this race. So, with luck, Hudson's still well within a chance here.
Yeah, closing the gap now to 6 tenths of a second. That was about how it was before the initial incident with Richard Cartwright. So Sweat and Hudson, this fight still definitely is on, and with the frequency of back markers crashing, you have to say Sweat and Hudson have been the only two that have, well, apart from Hudson and his sort of passenger incident, because he had really no say in what happened in that incident, they've been the only two that have really kept it clean throughout.
Yeah, and I think it's also the level of skill that these drivers have showed to avoid these accidents. Of course, like you say, Hudson was quite unfortunate to get involved in that accident, but they still have to have the wits about them, and they've still performed really well through the traffic. Of course, we're having a look towards the third place battle, the battle for the podium here. We've got, I think, 2 cars kind of fighting for this, Tripler and Stewart, and they've also kind of kept their noses clean, as opposed to the other people that are. Well, a lap down sounds dramatic, but when it's 13 seconds, it's really not that bad. We saw, in our GT3 race earlier, we saw, I think, 15 seconds between 8th and 9th, as I think that's Stewart to the inside. They do a little bit of wheel banging. The number 9's gone wide as well. Manages to defend that position, stops it on the apex beautifully, and that's Stewart up into P number 3.
Yeah, he's not going to be complaining with that one at all. So for Tripler, he's going to want to launch the counter-attack as soon as possible. 8 to go at the line then. Sweat and Hudson still lead. 10 seconds clear, as we say. Stewart and Tripler this fight for third. And it has broken out into 2 couplets for the top 4 places in this race. All that sideways. That was a lovely drift there from Stewart. Brilliantly done. Though Tripler, I think, got caught out a little bit by that. Tarnished his momentum. Yeah, we are seeing some pretty good displays of racing. But yeah, I don't think there's really much more you could ask for a race like this, with how easy it is to get lapped. We saw earlier on just one spin and boom, just like that. If you can't get it going immediately, you are under threat from going a lap down very early on.
And here's that traffic that Hudson needs. Like we've talked about, we've seen a bit of this tyre degradation as this race goes on. Sweat in front seems to be keeping the rear end in check pretty nicely. Hudson is following through the traffic. As you can see, as the leader, sometimes it's much easier to get through the traffic, but others, like you see there, can slow you up a little bit. It's going to be really interesting. That really did hamper Sweat there on the exit, and Hudson will be within a chance with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, well, he's going to need to send it. He's going to start getting a little bit desperate. 2 to go at the line, and who's going to come out on top? I mean, Sweat seemed pretty unbeatable so far, but has Hudson got it in his locker to go for it?
Well, I think we could see, depending on Hudson's decisions here, we could see maybe a little bump to pass. I feel like that's kind of one of the plays, especially on one of these short ovals. But maybe from what Hudson does on the day-to-day iRacing, that we won't see that. It's looking quite likely here now that Sweat will win.
Yeah, unless Hudson's got something in his locker. Through the final corner then, 50 laps ticked off. It went by as quick as it started. Daniel Sweat takes pole and, of course, the victory here in Texas, followed by Tyler Hudson in second place. Mark Stewart will come home a few seconds later in P3. Then Tim Tripler, P4, waiting for the lap cars to take the checkered flag as well. An interesting race here at Texas. Not exactly one action filled at all, but 50 laps went very, very quick, short and sharp, as we said, only sort of about 12 minutes in length. But yeah, it was interesting. It was just very peculiar with how the dynamic of this race shifted as it went on.
And yeah, like you say, even peculiar for an oval, because like with the grass and the weird kind of entry into the pit lane, it is a little bit different to what the drivers are usually adapting to, but they've all had a few days to adapt to it if they've been running the weekly series. Sweat and Hudson performed really, really well there to manage the traffic and also make sure that they kind of just managed it the best that they could, and everything like that. Sweat's going to give us some donuts here, and we do love to see this. Bit more popular in NASCAR. I love it in road, but you wouldn't tend to see it from the pros in road. They're all too sad and miserable.
A bit like yourself then. I mean, you're a road specialist, aren't you?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Poor Will Chadwick says his lack of success in the 24-hour series is down to the fact he has no friends. So that says everything you need to know about road drivers, ladies and gents. The NASCAR drivers, they like to have a bit more fun. But anyway, we take a look at the results after 50 laps here at Texas. Daniel Sweat takes victory ahead of Tyler Hudson in P2. Matt Stewart rounds off the podium with Tim Tripler P4. Jason Murray rounds off the top 5 with Dustin Newcomb just in behind there. Tyler Palmer, Richard Cartwright, Charles Silvis and Jeremy Daring, the top 10 just in behind there. Those that didn't quite manage to make it to the checker flag. Same too with a number of drivers actually inside the top 10. Brady Morano P11, Spencer Howell P12, Bo Brady and David Leonard Jr. Your top 14. Leonard Jr. not even making it 3 laps. Same too with Bo Brady, not even making it 3 laps into this race, which is less than a minute. They definitely did give up just a little bit too quickly. The fast lap 13.8 by Tyler Hudson did show that he did have the pace to succeed.
Yeah, and like you say, it's always going to be hard to kind of make an overtake and deal with the traffic, but I thought everyone performed really well there, especially at the front of the field, to manage it to the best of their abilities, and I think that was certainly a very, very interesting way to end our doubleheader tonight.
Yeah, as you say, interesting format for week 11 of Friday Night Primetime. We had our first tie between the GT3s and the SK Modified, so we was like, okay, we can't decide. Let's go to both. Why not? We've got the time to. They're short and sharp. We might as well. We do hope you all have enjoyed at home. That is going to round off our action, though, unfortunately, for tonight. If you do want to have a say for week 12, get yourself onto the RaceSpotTV Discord, go to the Primetime voting channel and have your say. 4 options will emerge over the next couple of days. They'll round off sort of on this time next week, sort of Friday morning in the UK. So you've got plenty of time to cast your vote and decide where we go for our season finale. But until then, guys, it's been myself, Zach Sweeney, and Will Chadwick in the commentary booth with Zach Johnson behind the scenes and providing you the production feed. But until we see you next time, hopefully we've got Cameron Roger back in a week's time. I'm getting sick and tired of having Will Chadwick alongside me. Keep an eye out for any new broadcasts over the weekend on RaceSpotTV, particularly with the Brick Car 24 Hours at Silverstone over the course of Saturday and Sunday. But well, if that's all we're going to hear from you in the live chat, take care, see you soon, and bye-bye.